What's going on, Reject Nation? I'm here today with my buddy, Andrew Gordon. Andrew, it's been a long time since you've been on the channel.
Yeah, I mean, there wasn't anything preventing me from coming on, not like a pandemic or anything, so.
Nope, not in the way at all. But Andrew is someone who gets tested regularly for his work, and he's clean right now. So I said, come on by, because undoubtedly, when it came to the first Spider-Man game, before I ever even played it, he was the #1 person championing for me to play that game. You played that one like at least 4 times, but you just beat this game last night, right? It's a pretty short game.
Yeah, it was definitely pretty short, and you and I were kind of talking about it earlier. This is kind of like something in between a DLC and a sequel disguised as that, but I mean, something that we can play in between the next Spider-Man game whenever that comes out. But yeah, no, I mean, it was definitely a little bit quick. It was enjoyable, especially the glitches.
There were some glitches in here, man. Yeah, it wasn't like overly abundant.
Yeah. But some of them were just a little obvious. But
and yeah, to clarify, we did get it on the PS4. I got it on PS4 Pro. Do you have a Pro?
No, I'm not a pro.
Oh,
so.
I'm so much better than you in every way.
You are so much better.
Except we didn't get it on PS5, so none of us win.
But if any of you want to donate one to us, you can.
It comes with a free upgrade, though. I really like the game overall. You know, I guess the basic way to sum it up, I mean, yeah, because we're going to talk about some spoilers here. We won't talk for too long. The spoilers that just stood out to us with some obviously basic things to cover as well. I would give it somewhere between like an 8.5 to 9 out of 10, somewhere there. Because in a lot of ways, this game was exactly what I expected it to be. And in some ways, that's like a fantastic, perfect thing, right? Because I expected a great game. And it's extremely, extremely fun. Yet at the same time, there's something there that's, I don't quite know what it is that was missing for me yet. And I'm hoping to discover that in the middle of us having this conversation. Overall, I did really have a blast doing it. Like, the gameplay was exceptional. I thought the swinging around was even more fun than the previous Spider-Man game. You notice how, like, Miles, he moves in an amateurish way.
In a more unique way. I mean, it's also kind of, too, like, how you would expect a teenager to, if had given these kind of powers, to swing. So I liked how they definitely varied with how different he swings than from how Peter swings.
Yeah.
Obviously, too, you know, Miles is definitely, I mean, he definitely jokes around, quirks around a little bit, but nowhere on the level of, like, Peter Parker. He's more down to business when he, you know, he's got a mission to do. Yeah, no, I agreed with you. It was definitely what I expected. I would say, I mean, I didn't have too many flaws in this game for the most part, other than, like we just mentioned, a little bit of the glitches here, but that's, you know, more nitpicking at that point. I'd say some of the only things for me is, you know, it was a little bit predictable with a few things that I personally guess were going to happen. But sometimes, you know, that's not always a terrible thing, but, you know, in this case, like I said, it wasn't, you know, I could see a couple things coming a mile away, but overall...
A mile away?
No pun intended. But yeah, the swinging was, I thought, was definitely improved upon from the previous Spider-Man game. It definitely packed a few emotional punches as well as the previous one. I wouldn't go on the same level as that one, but it definitely was emotionally engaging, you know, like the previous one for sure.
Well, the previous one didn't bring me to tears. I thought the previous one was more intense. They're really building it up until, you know, the breakout at Raft. That was like, oh my God. And here... I found that towards the end of the game, it did actually bring me to tears at the specific part. Well, I'm just going to talk about this game as if you guys have played it. The specific part with the Tinkerer, after she sacrifices herself, Miles wakes up and the people around him, kind of like Spider-Man 2.
Yeah, where they're protecting his identity and protecting him,
Yeah, and how his first thought, even though he has helped save the day, his first thought is him making sure everyone's okay. And there was something about that heroic journey for this guy, and how when he first wakes up from being unconscious and almost dying, his first thought is everyone else okay? His journey into really embracing his own version of Spider-Man did bring me to tears in that specific moment when the people around him, when Haley brings the mask over and everyone's protecting his identity. It did move me emotionally there. What I realized by the time it got to that point, because what I was noticing throughout the game was like, okay, there's some parts of this that feel a little bit repetitive because it's a smaller story. It's more contained. You're mainly fighting the underground, or you're fighting the Roxxon people. Then you get like a couple of fights with Rhino. You get a fight with the Tinkerer, and you get a fight with the Prowler. But the fight with the Prowler is not really that difficult.
Those fights were definitely pretty simple. I mean, obviously, when comparing to the other game, you got to fight like 6 guys at once at some points. The other game was definitely a little more intense. But, you know, harping a little bit back on the last game not bringing you to tears, for me, when Aunt May, when Peter had to make that choice, that kind of brought me.
Oh yeah, I kind of forgot about that right now.
But yeah, no, I agree with you in regards to this game, where I was definitely brought to tears in regards to Finn's sacrifice, and she also saw what Miles was about to sacrifice herself, so she understood that hatred was getting in the way of the overall bigger picture, and she saw what she was about to do, not only destroying Harlem, but I mean her best friend was about to be killed,
Sure.
and she didn't really want to fight Miles the entire time. She just wanted him out of the way so she could get her revenge on what Simon Krieger had done to her brother. So from that perspective, I empathized with her. I understood. I didn't agree with what she was doing, but I could understand why she was doing it, and that's good character building to me. And that's the depth that these characters had, and I really enjoyed that portion of the game for sure.
Yeah, but the point I was getting at was that even though what you're talking about with Finn, even though the game is technically not bigger in scope, it's a much more contained one. It works because the characters that you're focusing on feel a lot more personal. Everything about this feels more personal to Miles. You have Finn, who is like a childhood friend of his, like a brother-sister dynamic, but also maybe love interest dynamic too.
Yeah.
And then you got his Uncle Aaron, who it's his uncle, who's the Prowler. I actually enjoyed the side missions a little bit more in this game as well. I thought this was more focused on keeping everything a lot more intertwined, because with its themes of, proving himself in the way of how he can live up to the Spider-Man mantle, but he's also honoring the legacy of his dad and trying to be a hero in both departments, find his own identity, learn to deal with sacrifices. What I loved about his mirroring journey with Finn, Aaron lost his dad in the last one, so he could have been a bad guy too, where Finn lost someone that she loved and she ended up down this bad path. I love how they're like two opposite sides of the same coin. Thematically, this actually worked a little bit stronger, because for the fact that it is more of a contained story works for me, because the story feels a lot more personal in terms of its immediacy with its connection to characters, other than Simon Krieger. I just learned before filming that you said
Joel.
it's voiced by Joel from The Last of Us. What did you think of him?
I mean, he's your typical bad guy. I mean, he was, he's greedy, wants to, show why his product is the best thing in the world. Doesn't care who gets killed in the process. He just wants to get rich. Doesn't feel like human life is very valuable. Your typical bad guy. I mean, they didn't go too much into the character. I mean, they showed us a few scenes here and there, but I don't know. I didn't think there was too much depth in this villain in comparison. Obviously, the scope is different, so it's not fair to keep comparing to the original game. In regards to, what we got in the previous game with our villains, I just thought there was a lot more character depth with those villains in comparison to this. Obviously, this guy doesn't have a superpower or anything other than he's rich, as Batman would say in Justice League.
He's not even that smart. He has other people do all the crazy scientific stuff for him.
That is what a smart guy is.
What I'll say, though, is there are times where I thought the writing on on certain characters kind of lacked, but the performances of everyone were still really good. Same thing can be said for Troy Baker, because I agree on everything about the Simon Krieger character. He's set up to be the main villain, at least it's the way it alludes to that in the beginning of the game, but he's not. Really, the antagonist of the story is Finn. Mm-hmm. Simon Krieger, very two-dimensional in terms of how he's written, but I thought Troy Baker was having a blast playing him, though.
Troy Baker's phenomenal for sure.
And there were times with Finn where she kind of got on my nerves, and not in the good kind of villain way. The way how it is with Finn is kind of similar to the way it is with Doc Ock and Peter. But Doc Ock, he has the thing going on, and it's like he's got the emotional problems, but he's also got, what is that called? The
inhibitor chip. Right?
He's got the inhibitor chip, which is messing with his mindset, his emotions. And with her, she's constantly, I think the only thing that got on my nerves is like, stop lying to me. You keep lying to me. I'm like, you're a liar too. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
That was the only thing that kind of got on my nerves about her.
Totally understandable. I think she just felt so betrayed. She let Miles into the underground, and then he obviously lied about that. She felt betrayed when, Uncle Aaron kind of sold them out, so she had, again, she was already dealing with vengeance and revenge. So when you add your best friend, lied to you in the other two capacities, it just does not make for a very good recipe. I will also say, too, Peter Parker picked a hell of a few weeks to go out of town.
Yeah, I know, right?
Perfect timing. But
what do you think of his new look?
Yeah.
Did not grow on me. I was hoping that it would grow. The only time it didn't distract me is when you go to the flashback at the museum.
Yeah, with him and Doc Ock.
Yeah, for some reason that was I noticed later on. I was like, oh, that was the only time I wasn't pulled out by his look.
Well, it's just we just got so emotionally engaged with that look from the previous game. I mean, just like his facial reactions, how he just emotionally pulled you in with that the face that they had in the previous game. It's just, why screw up a good thing? It was perfect.
It really hit me why it bothered me so much is because in the other Spider-Man game, he's in his mid-20s, right? He feels like a character who's had a lot of experience under his belt.
Yes.
And then here, he looks like
younger,
a kid. He's
younger
like
than
kid.
Miles.
He's like the same age.
Are you sure you're older than Miles? I don't know.
And I've heard things of when it came time to updating the game's graphics or the PS5 modeling or whatever. I don't know the technical terminology that they justified changing his look for, but either way, I don't think it looks good.
Yeah, but Yuri Lowenthal was terrific again. I mean, obviously limited amount of time he has in this game. Obviously, in comparison to the last game, it's Miles' game, and he, as we mentioned, he's on vacation on assignment in Europe with MJ. He's her freelance photographer. But the time we do get to spend with Peter, other than checking out his, when he's in the mask, is when I enjoy him more now. Yuri did a great job again. I mean, he is Spider-Man to me. His voice, at least, he does a fantastic job. And the limited time we did get to have, I didn't really appreciate and enjoy his chemistry with Miles. He does feel like, even though he doesn't look like one from how young he looks, he does feel like a mentor, and someone who does a really good job. He definitely does a better job than Obi-Wan Kenobi mentoring this guy than Obi-Wan did with Anakin. So.
Yeah, I thought the mentoring it's a good comparison. I think the mentoring was one of my favorite elements of it. Like the Act 1 of this game, I really enjoyed working alongside Peter Parker. I even like the setups of the training that Peter laid out for him.
The holograms.
The hologram.
Yeah, that was really cool.
That was a blast to do. And that was another thing. There were times where I felt like the side missions, how at times in this game, and like with the last one, when they're like, all right, I guess I have to just swing around the city and do some missions, when they do that.
The main story comes along again. Yeah.
And I thought the use of that was better implemented here. And also the use of doing the hologram mission. Like I really wanted to keep doing it. Like obviously we were kind of rushing during our evenings to play the game so we can talk about the game, so we can go back and do all those other side missions, but I am itching to do those because I do find those to be a big blast. I really also like the character with who does the ASL, Haley.
Yes.
I love that dynamic too, and it made me want to see a sequel where they're dating each other. I love that ending where everyone's protecting his identity, and I thought the way they brought Harlem to life here. I've only been to Harlem once in my life.
Did you see Luke Cage when you were there?
I did not see Luke Cage nor Miles Morales when I was there. What I thought was really cool about this was this. Spider-Man is all about New York City, and here you could explore, New York City as well beyond Harlem. But they really made the community of Harlem, the life and personality of that, feel very much lived in.
Yes.
And I loved how this comes down to he's our Spider-Man, like he's Harlem Spider-Man, feeling that community, and that's what I mean. They made that even feel more personal. Spider-Man protecting New York, yes, that's his hometown, but it's New York City, and then here it's a very specific city where Miles Morales' identity is tied into, and I love that they really capitalized off of that. I also was surprised by Prowler.
That suit was so cool.
It was a sick suit. I loved how Prowler picked up on his identity right away.
Oh yeah, that was a good one. I like that. I really like when you see his name on the subway card. That was a good one. I was like, whoa. Okay.
He's not a full-on villain in this game at all.
Yeah, he was protecting his nephew. I mean, he definitely is a thief and does some things that are not great, but I mean, at the end of the day, he's doing what he's doing to protect his nephew.
Yeah, and I thought his performance was really good too. I was expecting him to take this turn where he's full-on evil because he's Prowler. I loved how he had this kind of conflicting, protecting fatherly image he felt he had to hold to Miles because, Aaron's brother, Miles's father, is gone. I thought the complexity of that relationship was written very well. I thought it was one of the strongest written parts of this story.
Oh, I completely agree. And also too, if you get time to do those sound missions that he gives you, you get more of the backstory, what happened between Miles's father Jefferson, and also with Aaron. You get to see like how they used to bond and how they grew up with each other, like a lot of the different places that they bonded over, and also you get to see kind of what kind of broke them apart. Obviously, him being the Prowler,
Yeah.
it wasn't helping. So Jefferson didn't want him, being around the family. But no, it was definitely very engaging. I love that portion of the storyline. I always like when there's a family link in there, and you have that emotional issue, and that and your hero responsibility. Like, what do I do? Do I fight my family? Like. And it was good on both parts.
Yeah.
You got to see, both characters' sides of it. Again, Uncle Aaron the Prowler is doing what he thinks is best because he wants to be in his family's life. That wasn't his choice in regards to what happened with his brother and him separating. I mean, technically it was in terms of, the life he chose, but he still wanted to be a part of their lives. And I like that part of it because when he did sell them out, he said, don't harm the boy or catch the boy. He did want Miles, unharmed. And the only reason he wanted Finn stopped is because he worked for Roxxon and he didn't want her, possibly destroying the city or, sending Miles down the wrong way. So didn't always agree with what he was doing, but I understood everything where he was coming from, and I appreciate that. You did also mention that line towards the end of the game, like, this is our Spider-Man, Harlem Spider-Man.
Yeah.
I love that line.
That's
One of the best lines in the game, and I'm really glad they included that in there.
I was brought to tears not because of sadness in this game. I was brought to tears because I was touched by its heroism. What did you think about, though? I gotta ask back to the gameplay. When it came to the Venom powers, I loved them. I loved using them. But I thought it made the game
easier.
So much easier. I thought that this game wasn't really challenging. And I feel like that's part of the thing that prevents it from making it a 10 out of 10 for me, because don't get me wrong, it's also extremely fun, but I rarely found it difficult. And I didn't play on hard. I played on the one right below hard, whatever that mode is called.
And was it normal?
It's whatever version of normal is with the fancy text.
Neighborhood, not friendly neighborhood. I don't know.
Yeah, and but still, I found like the first game a little bit more challenging because of that. But the Venom stuff is still really cool to use.
Yeah, and obviously
and you get camouflage too.
Yeah, those are both staples of things he can do in the comic books, of course. Maybe what they could have done to make you enjoy it a little bit better is, you get the Venom power so often. So maybe when you don't get to earn it back as quickly. It takes a lot more time to get it back. And like you said, it's a really cool thing to do. Yeah, it would have been cooler if they didn't give it to us as often as they did, because it felt less challenging. Yeah. Whereas the first game, you don't even get a Venom power, obviously, because Peter doesn't have that ability like Miles does. Visually and gameplay wise, it was awesome. It was a blast.
It's awesome.
No pun intended.
I wouldn't want it to not be.
Yeah, right. You just felt that it made the gameplay a little less challenging, which is what when you're Spider-Man, you want to be challenged. Yeah. You want to earn it. It's kind of like the Die Hard effect with Bruce Willis's character in the first film. When he goes through all the shit he goes through, by the end of the movie, you're like, damn, that was a challenge.
Yeah, exactly. I think what might have been missing for me is there's not really that many bosses. You know what I mean?
Rhino and Prowler and the Tinker.
Yeah, like the Prowler one doesn't feel that threatening. And honestly, I thought the Prowler one was surprisingly easy to do. But I thought that might be the most challenging one.
Right.
And Tinkerer, it was the hardest. It should be the hardest one because that's the final boss. Tinkerer should be the hardest one. Maybe if they had, I don't really know Miles Morales' rogue gallery. Like everyone knows Batman and Spider-Man's rogue gallery pretty well, but I don't really know Miles' rogue gallery. And perhaps if they had a little bit more of them in there, and then you made those the really challenging ones, you felt like you really needed your Venom or something, then I feel like I wouldn't really have that complaint, because for most of the game it is you're fighting the underground
and the Roxxon.
Yeah, and that feels kind of repetitive because they're just kind of doing the same thing. They're the same villains throughout the whole game. But the thing is, I gotta clarify it. It's constantly extremely fun.
Yes.
And I think that's where everything that I have an issue with, it's always supplemented by, it's a blast when you're playing it, though. It's always a blast.
It's like you're hiding that fun so you don't feel the repetitiveness as much. We got to really quickly to talk about the guy in the chair, Genki
Lee.
Yeah, he was, and obviously
him a lot.
Yeah, I did too. And Ned's character from Spider-Man: Homecoming, Spider-Man: Far From Home, he's variations of that character. No, I love the interaction and the chemistry between Genki and Miles is terrific. I mean, sometimes I just love swinging and just listening to them bicker back, and not bicker, but just go back and forth on what they're saying, where he's helping him out with a mission, or saying, hey, I got to go on a podcast, what do I wear? Like, just real life issues. I love his character and how he was helping Miles out. He was great.
I thought their chemistry was awesome, and I thought the J. Jonah Jameson podcast was just as good. I didn't really... I liked the other podcast. I didn't find it anywhere near as engaging. I would have been fine with just J. Jonah Jameson's podcast the whole time.
He is so entertaining. Hard one to compare.
It's hard to top J. Jonah Jameson.
Yeah.
And also Rio Morales, I thought was a really rich character. I was kind of surprised by just how many people learn Miles' identity in this game. Like, everyone knows who Miles is. It was surprising, but I also love how supportive she still was. She didn't have any of the cliche route of, you can't be doing this. She supported him throughout this whole journey. And when it came time to go after the big electronic Roxxon building thing to fight the Tinker at the end, she
with the neuroform explosion and all that.
Yeah, you know the words. She's just like, yeah, go for it, you know? And I love that. And also Aaron Davis turns himself into the police by the end of this too.
Right, and also he cuts a deal with them to sell out Simon Krieger. So in the end, he did the right thing. But yeah, I agree with you about Rio. It was nice that we didn't get the typical, I mean, it would be understandable. She's her mom. Of course. It's his mother, and she already has lost her husband, so it'd be understandable for her not to want to do
like
that.
She's like the Aunt May who knows.
Yeah, exactly. It just came out a lot sooner, and without her dying in this case. But yes, I did like that they veered away from the typical, I don't want you to do this. But yeah, I loved, again, their interactions too. They really feel like, I love their relationship. They're very close. I also love too when they interact in Spanish with each other. Sure. That was really cool. At the beginning where she's like, get the groceries. I forgot the coconut milk. I got to go here. And he's like, he's like kind of thinking like, how does Peter always come up with all these excuses and all that stuff? The biggest thing I loved in this game as well was Miles's growth throughout the game.
Exactly.
He really grew into a hero. I mean, not that he wasn't at the beginning, just seeing the responsibilities and everything he's got to go through, the emotional, punches, no pun intended, that he's got to fight with like characters that he cares about in regards to Uncle Aaron and with Finn. And, I just really loved watching the character grow. And even though it was a short, quick game, you really did feel it.
Well, I mean, he starts off as very insecure and constantly comparing himself to Peter Parker. And I love how you start off with him and Peter and it ends with him and Peter, yet your association and image to Miles Morales by the end of the game, you're like, no, he's fully formed now.
Oh yeah,
it's more than just he's got a suit. It's more than just he's got
a cooler suit.
And I thought the suits were. I found myself switching around to suits depending on where we were at in the story. They were more than just cool suits. I actually liked the how some of the suits had some real meaning to, like the holiday one.
Yeah, that was a cool one.
I did get the Into the Spider-Verse one, but I think only on the PS5 is when it does like the cool animation.
Did you do the Prowler? Sound?
No.
Okay, well then I'll leave it at that.
Why? There's a way to.
Well, the if you do the sound missions I was talking about, where you uncouth the backstory of Uncle Aaron and Jefferson, he gives you a suit. It was like a Prowler suit.
Oh,
but
snap!
Yeah, it was really cool.
I guess what was missing for me was just a little bit more. I would like just a little more bosses. That's about it.
Yeah. No, I agree. And then we also got to talk really quickly about the mid-credit scene we get. That's obviously setting up for the next Spider-Man game. We get to see Harry in that. His little Baka tank, Star Wars reference there.
With Dr. Connors.
There's Dr. Kirk Connors. You see his arm is missing, and also we see Norman calls him Kurt, so we know that's for sure the lizard.
Yeah.
But yeah, we get to see that, he wants him out of that tube immediately, and so this sets up him being Venom in the next game.
Yeah. Venom?
It looks like he's got the symbiote.
They're gonna turn Harry Osborn into.
We'll see.
Really?
I'm sure the people in the comments will let us know, but I mean, it looks like he's got symbiote all over him. So.
Oh, snap. I didn't notice that.
No, that was really cool how they set that up. And then, of course, the end credits. There's two things that we noticed in the end credits. It's not really a scene, but a very nice tribute to Chadwick Boseman, who, of course, we lost earlier in this year. And that was really nice. They put like a noble king and all that.
Rest in peace,
yes,
King.
Rest in peace. Yes. And also we got to see Miles. He had an award for, that him and Finn won, and he put it on, I believe it was the Trinity Church. And, in memorial and tribute to her. So I thought that was a really nice touch. It's something that he's never going to recover from emotionally, at least, but he's still going to fight on. He's still going to keep doing his hero duties.
Well, yeah, I mean, I played for a little bit longer after that, and then he calls up his mom and is saying, like, I'm so conflicted on this, like it was her fault why all this happened, but I miss her. And and I love ending on kind of that moral complexity note. By the time Finn sacrificed herself, I was like, oh man, that's a pretty crazy arc. She really, it's like so Spider-Man theme to do that, like to realize what I've done, I must sacrifice myself now. I thought it was a great game, and I can't wait to finally get a PS5 and upgrade the damn thing, because story-wise, it might not be as big, it might not be as ambitious of a story they're telling, yet I thought in terms of introducing Miles Morales as Spider-Man to play the game, I found it to be a very focused, personal, heroic tale. By the end, it did really move me.
And it's a perfect segue getting you ready for the next Spider-Man game, because
I hope you can hop around between playing as Peter and
that's
Miles
what
in
I'm
that game.
that's what I'm hoping for too, because that would have been not confusing, but it wouldn't have as much depth as now where we get, like, we've already had a whole storyline with Miles going into the next game, so it's going to be nice, like, not having to fill that in during the game. We can just focus on the next storyline. So this game I mean, I was already pumped for the next Spider-Man game, but this just makes me even more pumped, and I can't wait for whenever we get that. I was assuming 2 or 3 years.
I mean, it'd be cool if it is kind of like a hybrid where it's a sequel to the first Spider-Man game and a sequel to Miles Morales, which it is. It has to be, especially with the way the mid-credit scene is here.
For sure.
But it would be cool if they treat that game like it really is a sequel to both, so it feels like a culmination game.
Absolutely.
All right, guys. Well, Spider-Man Miles Morales, what did you guys think of the game? Did you enjoy it overall? Was it let down in any way? Was it more than you wanted? Was it exactly? Tell us below. Thanks, Andrew, for coming by. Follow him on social media. Links in the description box. Subscribe to The Real Rejects. Click that notification bell. We'll catch you guys soon.